Have you ever wondered if a Ouija board really connects you to the great beyond, or if there's a more rational explanation? This video pulls back the curtain on Ouija boards, revealing the surprising scientific phenomenon behind those mysterious movements. Get ready to have your mind blown as we explore how your own psychology might be the real force at play. For centuries, Ouija boards have both captivated and terrified us with their supposed supernatural abilities. But what if I told you the truth behind their movements isn't ghosts, but something far more fascinating and completely scientific? Prepare to unravel the mystery of the Ouija board as we reveal the powerful yet invisible psychological effect that explains it all. The enduring appeal of the Ouija board comes from its evolution. It started as a Victorian parlor game, but quickly became a symbol of the paranormal. This happened after it was commercialized in the late 19th century, and people started associating it with supernatural events. This cultural phenomenon, mixing fun with fear, has captured the popular imagination. It also set the stage for scientific exploration into something called the ideomotor response, which explains how the unconscious movements of the users are what really moves the planchette. Let's rewind. The Ouija board actually began as an innocent toy in the late 1800s. An entrepreneur named Elijah Bond was the first to market it in 1890, and it became a popular form of home entertainment. Over time, however, the Ouija board got tangled up with the paranormal. It started showing up in horror stories and tales of supposedly real supernatural events. This cemented its image in pop culture as a mysterious and feared object. But science has a different story to tell. The movement of the planchette is explained by the ideomotor response. By understanding that the movement comes from an unconscious psychological response, the Ouija board has become a tool for studying these very phenomena. Its history provides the perfect starting point for investigating how our beliefs, expectations, and psychological processes can shape our perception of reality. So, these movements and phenomena that seem so supernatural often have scientific or psychological explanations. The ideomotor effect is a prime example where movements are unconsciously caused by the people themselves. Even though these experiences can challenge our logic and feel otherworldly, they are usually the result of natural, instinctive, or psychological causes, rather than supernatural forces. Let's break down the possible explanations. First, the ideomotor effect. This phenomenon explains how objects like a Ouija board planchette move because of tiny, unconscious muscle movements from the participants, who genuinely believe an external force is responsible. Then there are psychological factors. Suggestion, both conscious and unconscious, and the sheer power of the mind can influence our perception and behavior, causing us to make movements or interpret events in ways that seem supernatural. A phenomenon might be labeled as supernatural simply because we lack the scientific knowledge to understand it, or because of the influence of our cultural beliefs. And of course, there are subjective experiences. Some people report experiences that science can't fully explain yet, like strong intuition or déjà vu, which can feel supernatural. To sum it up, most phenomena that seem supernatural have a rational or psychological explanation. The ideomotor effect is a common culprit for those unexplained movements. Often, labeling an event as supernatural just means we don't have a clear understanding of its true cause. So what exactly is the ideomotor effect? It's a phenomenon where subconscious thoughts or ideas cause involuntary muscle movements. Think of the tiny unconscious twitches that make a pendulum swing or a Ouija planchette move. This happens when the idea of an action is transmitted directly to your motor system, completely bypassing your conscious intention. The power of suggestion plays a huge role here. Our expectations and the suggestions we receive can influence our motor behavior without us being fully aware of it. The classic examples are the pendulum and the Ouija board. The movements can be so subtle that the person producing them is convinced they're being guided by an external force. The term ideomotor was actually coined by William Carpenter in the 19th century. He used it to explain phenomena that were mistakenly attributed to paranormal causes, like dowsing for water. The underlying theory is that the mere idea of an action triggers the sensory consequences of that action in our brain, which in turn generates the action itself. Our brain is a constant processing machine. It's always taking in sensory information, what we see, hear, and touch, and using it to generate motor responses, often automatically and without our conscious awareness. This function is vital for our daily lives. It allows things like walking, talking, or yanking your hand away from a hot stove to happen almost instantly. The brain receives data from our senses and from inside our body. It then organizes this information to interpret our environment and our internal needs. Based on this processing, the brain sends messages to our muscles to move. This is how we perform voluntary actions, like picking up a glass, and involuntary responses, like a reflex. Basic bodily functions, like breathing, heart rate, and digestion, are all managed by the brain without us having to actively think about them. A part of the brain called the cerebellum is key here, coordinating sensory information to create smooth, fluid movement. So, how does this all apply to the Ouija board? The ideomotor effect explains its workings through involuntary, yet coordinated muscle movements from the participants. Unconsciously, they move the planchette to align with their subconscious expectations and desires. Everyone believes a spirit is guiding the movement, but in reality, it's their own minds producing those tiny movements, which get amplified on the board's surface. Let's see how it works in a session. First, there's expectation and belief. When participants touch the planchette expecting it to move and spell a message, their muscles start making subtle movements. These are involuntary, a result of the muscle activity that occurs when you're simply thinking about or waiting for something to happen. Then comes the collective movement. Since everyone is sharing the same expectation, the small, unconscious movements of each person add up and get amplified. This creates a coordinated and seemingly deliberate movement of the planchette. And the direction of the movement often reflects the subconscious desires, fears, or thoughts of the participants. If they're hoping for a specific answer or dreading a particular one, their movements might unconsciously steer the planchette toward the letters that spell it out. Scientific evidence backs this up. In experiments where participants are blindfolded and told a spirit is writing, the result is just gibberish. This confirms that the movements depend on the participants' expectations, not an external force. Suggestion and group dynamics amplify the ideomotor effect even further. They create an environment where one person's subtle cues are easily accepted and imitated by others. Suggestion makes us more open to ideas, while group dynamics encourage conformity. We've all felt peer pressure, where we adopt behaviors to align with the group. In a Ouija session, if one person subtly suggests a movement, and other group members show even a slight tendency to follow, social influence and our desire to conform can make that suggested movement spread and become much more intense than it would be individually. So, if it's all in our heads, why do people feel a sense of thrill, or even comfort, when using a Ouija board? It's a mix of psychological and emotional factors. The ideomotor effect provides the movement. A manipulated sense of agency makes us feel like we're controlling something external. And emotional contagion, the spread of feelings within the group ramps up the drama. Even when you know the science, these elements can create a powerful experience. But this also comes with risks, especially for susceptible individuals. People prone to suggestion might experience negative effects like nightmares or paranoid thoughts. For those with pre-existing mental health conditions like anxiety or depression, the experience can be a trigger. The combination of intense suggestion and emotion can be particularly traumatic for sensitive teens, even without any prior issues. This all points to the incredible power of the subconscious mind. It's a vast storehouse of our beliefs, fears, and desires that influences our behavior and perception of reality, often without us even knowing. Understanding this gives us a deeper appreciation for human psychology. It reveals how our past patterns and unexamined thoughts guide our actions, emotions, and decisions every day. Our subconscious stores everything, every memory, and experience, and silently governs much of our lives, driving our habits and ingrained beliefs. It processes information to free up our conscious mind, but its impressions direct our actions. It's also the wellspring of creativity, passion, and dreams. What you believe in your subconscious tends to manifest in your life. By understanding this, we can explain impulsive behaviors and repetitive patterns. We can see how childhood experiences form the foundation of our beliefs. And because the subconscious is open to suggestion, we can actually reprogram it with positive thoughts to change our reality. It reminds us that our conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. The subconscious is a vast force that, if we learn to work with it, can be our most powerful ally. Do you think you can't be influenced by something you're not even aware of? This video will challenge everything you thought you knew about Ouija boards and the paranormal. We've delved into the ideomotor effect, the hidden force that explains the movement of the planchette, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Are you ready to accept the surprising truth? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the mind. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that challenges your perception of reality.